Since changing the name of the Eclectic Americana Friday morning drive time radio show on January 20th, 1989 to the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club, the DJs in the collective have strived to entertain and inform our listeners. Airing from 6 to 9 a.m. Pacific at KZSC 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California, the Bushwhackers usually have 2 interviews a week, each airing for about half an hour. We're not afraid to ask questions or admit that we don't know something, and we don't mind taking deep dives or following a tangent as we get into how sausage is made in local, county, or state politics, or learning about things going on in our community, or discussions with artists. Our interviews are not scripted and are produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange. Kalamity Kyle on the hot seat. Woo! KZSC, you're on the air.
Hello, good morning.
It's 28th District Assemblymember Gail Pellerin.
Hello, Gail.
Joining us on the Bushwhacker.
Hello.
How are you this fine morning? We trust you're doing well.
I am sitting in my car over at PCS school. They're doing a demonstration advocating for more better wages and benefits for their teachers. So I'm going to be joining them with that shortly. Yeah.
So, Gail, when the Commander-in-Chief, President Biden, came to Santa Cruz County, were you able to speak with the with the big boss?
We had fabulous representation. There was a limited number of people that could go. So our Senator John Laird was there. Of course, our Congress member Jimmy Panetta was there. And our Assembly member, Don Addis, was there, who represents the area where Biden was going. So the way the Redistricting Commission set up these districts, my district goes from the harbor north, includes San Lorenzo Valley, then over the hill to Santa Clara. But Don Addis picks up at the harbor, and her district goes all the way down to Oceano, 450 miles of coastline.
Holy moly.
So,
wow.
She was there representing our legislature.
But when the possibility existed that you were going to be able to meet the president, did you think of the one question that you were going to ask or the one statement that you were going to make?
Well, I would say, that there's many people who are suffering, many people who have lost access to their homes, have had destruction of their businesses. Our roads are blocked, providing major arteries for people to get to and from work and school. And I really wanted to make sure he knew how important it was to look at all the areas that have sustained damage and not just the most maybe picturesque.
So I get it that the president was visiting Don Addis's district. Our district sustained some pretty significant damage. As
Absolutely.
An assembly member, are you directing resources? Are you drawing attention to it? What's an assembly member's role when calamity strikes?
Absolutely. And I was on the phone many times a day with the Office of OES and pushing for that disaster recovery center, which they now have opened in Felton. So at the Felton Library, there is a one-stop shop for state, federal, county resources for people to go. I believe it's open 7 days a week, and folks can go in. There's an application online that they can fill out before and go in and see what is available to them. And we're continuing to work with OES and, my counterparts in the legislature, Senator John Laird and Don Addis and Robert Rivas and Congressmember Panetta to make sure that Santa Cruz County gets all of the resources they need to rebuild and come back from these horrible disasters.
Gail, we're never embarrassed to admit that we don't know things. What is OES?
I've been saying this to people, too. I'm like, I don't know what these acronyms are. Office of Emergency Services.
Got it.
Gotcha.
Now, is that state, county, federal, everybody all together now? Who are they?
So OES is the state. FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, is federal. And then the county has its I forgot what they call them, the EOC Emergency Office. I don't know. And so Maureen McCarty, who's my district director, who was the district director for Mark Stone, is now my district director, who's got a wealth of knowledge and expertise and has worked with all these agencies for decades. She has been coordinating the efforts with the county.
Got it. Okay, so OES, Office of Emergency Services, state. So again, coming back to your role, shining a light on it, you said you're coordinating. Do you also, shock and awe? You get to do the tours and see all the, it's just heartbreaking how much damage there's been.
Absolutely devastating. Absolutely. And I am so grateful for our first responders and the people that have gone out there to start doing the cleanup. Our incredible fire departments in the San Lorenzo Valley have just really stepped up to make sure that people are getting served and people are getting resources. PG&E, for all PG&E may bring about in way of feelings, I believe they really did do an amazing job bringing so many crews to this area. They had, camps and base camps set up over at Roaring Camp and one over at the old swamp meet, and they were dispatching people throughout the county, making sure that we were trying to get power on. I know it didn't get turned on as quickly as we wanted for folks, but they really were out there doing their very best. We even had a crew from Canada who came down to help us, so it really was an all-hands-on-deck operation.
Now, we asked about this with somebody working in local politics to coordinate the storm response effort a couple weeks ago. But I'd love to know, Gail, with every situation like this, with every kind of emergency situation, there's you learn lessons about how to respond properly, like how to best respond to the needs of the community in times like these. And from your perspective, what are some of those takeaways? Like, how might the next response be different from the one that we've had this time around? What new things might be offered and what might be changed?
Yeah, well, and I also want to say, we're still doing assessments, and and the damage to West Cliff Drive, that beautiful picturesque walkway and roadway. I mean, that has sustained incredible damage as well. And my district also includes Santa Clara County, and Santa Clara County sustained substantial damage, and we are advocating now to the president to include Santa Clara County in the federal major disaster declaration.
Right.
So, to me, I think what I've learned is, we're getting good at this. California knows how to respond to emergencies. We really need to have these best practices in place where we are quickly putting together those disaster recovery centers, because people really want to know that there's help available. And how do I obtain that help? So I think getting those disaster recovery centers up and running quickly is essential. So we should know where to put them, depending on where the area is, and be able to just bring those in and get those set up as quickly as possible. And getting these roadways open, I mean, that is absolutely essential. I mean, Highway 9 is just a disaster with that landslide. And I believe they're trying to open up a lane, which would be absolutely incredible if they can do this. But, that's really cutting a lot of the major, arteries off for people who are trying to get into Santa Cruz for work or school, or that are having to use that Glen Arbor drive around there. And Bear Creek Road is also closed and has a landslide. So we need to get that open as quickly as possible. So, and I think we have improved. I think our disaster response to this disaster has been better than in the past. So I think we are learning some good lessons. And the reality is that, this was a lot of things that came together, with the high tide and these atmospheric rivers really just pummeled this central coast area here, and the destruction is, extreme. So
I learned that if you had any damage to anything having to do with the roof over your head, and this goes for both homeowners and renters, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is where you go. If it's anything else other than the roof over your head, it's the Small Business Administration, the SBA. Both of them are down at Ramsey Park at 1301 Main in Watsonville, 9 to 6. So and they're also at the Felton Library. So right. That's what we got open this week. Gotcha. So I think it opened yesterday. So that was what I was pushing for, is to making sure we had a
that one-stop shop for getting disaster relief in one location in the San Lorenzo Valley.
Felton Library. Now, Gail Pellerin, 28th District Assemblymember, when we spoke with you in December, you had set up your Santa Cruz office at the county building. You'd set up your Morgan Hill Government Center office, and you were looking for a place in Santa Clara County. Do you have a Santa Clara County office yet?
So I'm actually driving over there today to look at a couple of office possibilities. I had to make sure I had the budget for it, so that just got approved this week. So, yes, we'll be out touring the area and visiting office space and hopefully getting something up and running by March 1st. So
when we also spoke in December, you were angling for committees. We were talking about policy committees, the standing committees, but I think but you were on budget sub 1, which is health. Well, I wanted that one. You wanted that one. Okay, so tell us about your committee assignments.
Yeah. So I'm on Rules Committee, and Rules Committee is the one that basically sets up the rules for the legislature, and we are the ones that assign bills to committee. So so in that position, I will be able to see all the bills coming through the legislature. And then I'm on Appropriations, which is also a great committee to be on, because that's the committee that decides if your bill is going to cost money. We'll decide which ones get off of the suspense file and on to the next house, and which ones get held back. And then I'm on elections, so I do have some expertise there after 27 and a half years serving as the county clerk registrar of voters. And I'm on Natural Resources, which is a key committee to make sure we're protecting our natural resources in this district. And then I'm on Water, Parks, and Wildlife, which I did not ask for, but I'm excited to serve. So,
got it. Okay, so the Rules Committee, and Rules Committee is the traffic cop, right?
Yeah.
Anything it goes through the Rules Committee, and you point out if it has anything to do with money, it goes to Appropriations. And the suspense file is anything that requires new money, always gets put in that suspense file, and they're dealt with kind of toward the end of the session, correct?
Yeah. Because right now our estimated budget gap is $22.5 billion for the 2023-24 fiscal year. And once the May revise comes out, when we have a better idea of what our revenues are, we'll be adjusting that. And, negotiations are starting and talking. We've got budget bills that have been introduced, spot bills, and looking at what we're going to be doing for our budget this year. So we've got about 5 months here where we're going to be working with the administration and, of course, the Senate and putting together California's budget.
Now, elections. We've been a democracy for, as a country over a couple hundred years, states since, over 150 years. Is there really things for elections to be working on in California?
Amazingly, yes.
Is it because technology?
There's always room for improvement. And one bill that I introduced just this week is a bill that is going to help our no party preference voters vote on the office of president if they have failed to request a crossover ballot. So currently the way the law says is that if you're a no party preference voter, which is a large growing population of people who don't want to affiliate with any political party, they are allowed to cross over and vote a party's ballot if that party has adopted rules allowing the crossover. And then they have to request the right ballot. And now that we are mailing ballots to every voter, we would often get calls from our no party preference voters quite shocked when they got a ballot that did not contain the office of president. So we're working on a method for them to be able to vote for president without having to switch out that ballot. So we're trying to, I'm working with the California Association of Clerks and Election Officials, whether it's a write-in space on the ballot or another piece of paper in with your ballot. We're going to make sure that voters are easily enfranchised so they are able to vote in the presidential election.
And is this for the primary or the general election?
It would be for the presidential primary, which as of today is going to be in March 2024. So that's what we're planning this for. So this is going to have to be a bill that moves through this year and gets implemented in time and enacted in time so registrars can utilize it.
Now, Gail, we're hearing all over the country that, from elections that are facing intense scrutiny from locals. It's often, along divided along political lines, and the elections committee in the state of St. Louis, I can only imagine in other states as facing a good deal of that scrutiny, and as a result, one might consider it a slightly stressful job in this day and age to be creating rules around elections. I'm out of curiosity, from your district, from the areas that that you work for, that have influence over that you interact with. Are you facing any of that scrutiny? Is it a stressful job? What's it like being on the election committee so far?
So far it's been pretty quiet. We haven't had our first committee hearing yet. But there's a lot happening in California. And one thing I think we need to fix is there's a board of supervisors in Shasta County that basically has thrown out their county's voting system. And I don't know what they're expecting their registrar to use to conduct an election, but and this is a voting system that's gone through federal qualification and state certification and is used by multiple counties in California. But they believe the lies and deceit that have been put out about this voting company, that they've basically said they can't use it in Shasta. So, I was talking to the registrar there yesterday, and this is something that's got to change. I mean, we can't just have new boards of supervisors coming on board and basically taking away their residents' voting system. So, people are going to have to. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, maybe they're expecting them to put out printed ballots that are hand counted or something that will take forever to do, and doesn't have a lot of checks and balances, and is not a certified system. So it's concerning that political bodies can make these sweeping changes to democracy in their county. So I'm going to be working with the Secretary of State's office on this and the Elections Committee to see if we can come up with some protections for our voting systems here in California.
If you're just joining us, folks, we're talking to our California Assemblymember, Gail Pellerin, here on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club. I'm Dangerous Dan.
I'm Calamity Kyle.
I'm Kaos.
So, Gail, you mentioned two other committees, Natural Resources, which is like oil, gas, water, but I think it's also coastal resources.
Yes, yeah.
And water, parks, and
wildlife, yes.
Wildlife. Okay. We'll come back to those on a different show. We got about 10 minutes left. Isn't there a date by which all bills that will be considered in this assembly year need to be submitted?
Yeah, there is a date for bill introduction, and this is a test. I think it's February.
It's February
22nd. Yeah, it's coming up in February.
Up in February, so we got about a month. When we spoke last, you were talking about possibly putting in a bill that has something to do with mental health awareness. You've mentioned already the no party preference vote for people who want to vote in presidential primaries. What other bills have you submitted or are getting close, and you know that you're going to submit?
Yeah, no, we're really excited. We definitely are going to be doing a behavioral health bill, and looking forward to champion that. And I do have some other election bills that I'm working on as well. And I have a district bill that we're working on with some district folks. And we've got a really great legislative team being put together, and we're just working on fine tuning a lot of the language and getting ready for those to be introduced by the deadline.
Got it. Now, we've spoken about standing committees. Any select committees, or does that come later?
So select, we're right now in the middle of making those requests, and I need to figure this one out because the Assembly does not have a select committee on mental health.
Oh.
But the Senate does. And when I was talking to the senator who was chairing that, she was saying that it's actually a joint committee, but it's not listed as that. So I just want to make sure that there is a select committee on mental health, because we are in a public health crisis on mental health, and we need to do a deep dive into what we're doing, how much money we have, how it's getting spent, and making sure that we are providing the services that people need. We need to do workforce development and develop that pipeline for people to get into the mental health field. And we've got the implementation of 988 happening. We got Care Court going on. So there's a lot of issues happening in mental health that really is going to require all stakeholders coming together and doing that deep dive to make sure we get it right.
Okay, so just help us out. The standing committees, like appropriations and rules, these deal with legislation, bills that are under consideration, right? And they vote them up,
Yes.
down. Okay,
Yes.
and select committees are, you mentioned deep dives. Select committees gather information and then generate legislation that gets kicked over to a standing committee. How does select committees fit into the process?
Yeah. So select committees will do a lot of the research, working with all the stakeholders, the interested people in the state of California on issue areas, and then they will maybe sponsor legislation, or members of that committee will offer legislation that will go through the process of being introduced and being assigned to a committee by Rules Committee, and then determining if there's a funding element, and then going into the next house. So that's how that's all working.
I got it. We have a new mentee on the Bushwhackers, Kaos here on my right, your left, coming out of your mid-range and tweeter. And Kaos, we are not afraid to dive into how sausage is made. So to have half an hour of our...
And I'm, I worked in the legislature many, many decades ago, back in the late 80s to 92.
Oh, wow.
And I'm learning so much every day. And things are... different, but there's a lot of things that are still the same. So it's been just an incredible opportunity and honor to be the representative for this area.
So, Gail, you're a freshman assembly member, brand new, yet you ended up on two of the most powerful committees in the assembly, the Rules Committee and Appropriations. Do you think this is because you spent so many years at the assembly, 8 years in Sacramento, you worked for Rusty Arias? Is it the fact that you had so much experience up there that you got onto these, rather powerful committees?
Well, I think all the committees have power, and yes, I'm very proud to be on those committees, and I think it's really essential. We have so much talent in the legislature. We have doctors, we have scientists, we have business owners. So we really need to be utilizing these people for the skills and knowledge and that they have, and making sure they're on the committees where they can do the most good and provide the most insight on. I said mental health's a public emergency, but also homelessness. We are in a crisis on homelessness. We are in a crisis on climate, and we are in a crisis on housing. And thank God we're finally getting funding to education. So I'm hopeful that our education system's turning around. But, as we need to really utilize the members of our legislature, whether they're Democrat or Republican, and utilize that knowledge and skills that they have so they could help us improve the state of California.
So, Gail, I'm in a discussion group that has actually card-carrying Republicans and Democrats in Santa Cruz who gather monthly to kind of discuss issues. And last night, I suggested that as someone who's fought for gun control for 50 years, I'm ready to throw in the towel because nothing has worked. And one of the members of the discussion group, Barb, across the table from me, asked whether you think this propensity to go to violence and shooting is because of a breakdown in civility.
It's a horrible situation, and this week has been particularly heartbreaking with the 3 mass shootings, and the fact that what is today, the 27th, that we've had over 39 mass shootings plus in the United States. This isn't happening in other countries. We have so many people who have guns, and we also have a mental health crisis, and people are suffering, people are hurting, and they're taking it out in horribly violent ways. So we need to figure this out. And I personally am a member of Moms Demand Action. I'm actually doing an event on Sunday with them because I want to learn more. I want to understand what else I can do to stand up and fight against what's happening in this nation, because it's just unacceptable. And I really feel, I have a 25-year-old daughter who called me very upset and not feeling safe. She just does not feel safe anymore. And it's interesting how even as I go about my business, I'm constantly looking at, where the vulnerabilities are and what would happen if. And, our kids are having to learn, how to respond to a shooter in their schools. I mean, this is not the America we envisioned, so we have got to find a way to help people and provide some sense of safety and security again.
I don't know where to start, because California has some of the strictest gun control in the land, and we do have below our share of mass shootings, but they still happen. Half Moon Bay, Monterey Park. I mean, I hear you, and to have our kids going through active shooter drills it's heartbreaking, and I don't know what we can do here on Bushwhackers or what you can do in the Assembly to kind of shine a light on this. But the discussion was, how do we instill, civility or some way for people to seek a solution that doesn't involve pulling a trigger?
Yeah. And what's incredible is, the ordinary people in the world that are fighting against this. I mean, look at that young man, 26-year-old, who took on that shooter in Monterey Park. I mean, he just went full on, I'm going to take this person down. And it's just an ordinary guy, young kid, who just stepped up. And so I think each of us need to recommit our resolve to civility, to justice, to respect, and to stand up and speak against people who are spreading hate and targeting different groups just because they're a member of a certain group. This is appalling. I mean, today I'm going to go speak on the Holocaust Remembrance Day over in San Jose. And, we need to learn from these horrific events that have happened in our history. And we need to continue to fight to make sure they do not happen again. So I will, with my last breath, I will continue to fight for gun reform and to get guns out of the hands of people who are not mentally set up to be responsible for that. And there's different. I mean, San Jose did a great program with Sam Liccardo. It has some legal challenges, but so far it's sustained. The Gun Harm Reduction Act, where gun owners are required to take out an insurance policy, and if their gun is used in any horrific crime, they're responsible. It's a step, and I think that we need to continue to come up with creative ways. We need to continue to be loud and just reject what's happening, and just like I said, until my dying breath, I will be out there advocating for reduction of these guns. It's just too much.
Well, 28th District Assembly Member Gail Pellerin, thank you so much for joining us monthly here on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club. It's KZSE Santa Cruz. I'm Dangerous Dan.
I'm Calamity Kyle.
I'm Chaos.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
You be well, Gail. We're looking forward to continuing the conversation and continuing to fight, like you said, to your last breath.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Be well. You've been listening to a podcast from an interview on the Bushwhackers Breakfast Club on KZSE 88.1 FM in Santa Cruz, California. This interview has been produced by myself, Dangerous Dan Orange. KZSE is a student-run college and community non-commercial educational radio station broadcasting from the UC Santa Cruz campus. You can stream KZSE online at kzse.org. Thanks for listening.